for these accused. This case was not just a case. And so this case, Dr. Yuta looked forward to winning this case because this case was going to make it. And if he cracked this case, it was going to open endless doors for him. And Dr. Yuta was so much looking forward to this. So Dr. Yuta had a team with himself, but actually during the trial, that whole team disappeared. Because every now and again it was Dr. Yuta, and then Dr. Yuta, and then more Dr. Yuta. In fact, Dr. Yuta planned the case very well, according to his understanding. You see, what he would do was he had surprise witnesses, or sometimes he would have articles from the newspaper that he put aside so that he can surprise the defense with them. One of the surprise witnesses was a man called Bruno Mtolo. Bruno Mtolo was his chief witness. Bruno Mtolo was a trained soldier. He was a trained saboteur. He was very good with making the bombs, and he was very good with blowing them. So Bruno Mtolo, but now the state had actually gotten Bruno Mtolo to come and testify against his former comrades. So his guns today and his bombs were no longer directed towards the state or towards the system that he had always been planning to. His bombs were directed towards the accused. So first on this side we had Dr. Yuta, the prosecutor. And then on this side, we then had also the accused. These accused were a different type of accused. Because what they had decided, they decided that this trial was not just a trial. It was not necessarily a legal trial, but it was a political trial. And they actually made it difficult even for the defense because they had their own principles of how they were going to deal with this case. One of the things they said was that they were never going to divulge any information that was going to implicate one another or that was going to implicate other people outside so that the police could go out and get them. You know, let me give you a very nice classical case of what was happening in this case, in this court. Also, Dr. Yuta was cross-examining Walter Sisulu. And so Dr. Yuta picked up a pamphlet of a meeting that he know had taken place, and he had all the information. So he asked Walter Sisulu, now Walter, do you know about this meeting? Walter says, yes. So where did this meeting take place? Walter says, in Johannesburg. Where in Johannesburg did this meeting take place? Walter says, in the southwestern parts of Johannesburg. Now, where did this meeting take place, Sisulu? And then Sisulu asked him, do you want the house? Because I'm not going to tell you the name of the house. Why? And then Walter Sisulu says, because just now, I tell you, and then send out your police, and they go out and collect those people and put them in jail. I'm not going to do that. And Dr. Yuta was stunned. In fact, Walter Sisulu, because you see, one of the strategies of Dr. Yuta was that he thought that he could break Walter Sisulu. And so he put Walter Sisulu, because in his mind he thought, yeah, Walter Sisulu is going to get information from the learned comrades of his. He actually said, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to isolate Walter Sisulu from the other people so that he can stay by himself. During that whole time of cross-examination, he isolated and put Walter Sisulu in solitary confinement. But still, he could not break Walter Sisulu. So then he continued with his cross-examination and he asked Sisulu, Sisulu, how many members does the African National Congress have? And then Sisulu says, 120,000. Sir, Sisulu, 120,000? And you purport to be representing all the African people? You only have 120 people. So Walter Sisulu asked him, sorry, sir. Sorry, Dr. Yuta, how many members does the National Party have? Let's change the subject. He was clever. Okay, on this other side then, we also had the defense. The defense was led by a man called Abraham Fisher. He was known to many people as Bram Fisher. Now, Bram had all the future in front of him, but he had made a problem for himself because he decided to join and had spoken on platforms of the South African Communist Party. Now, this was a problem for him because all the doors that could have been opened to him were now closed. And then next to him, we had Arthur Chaskalson. Now, Arthur Chaskalson was a tall young man. He was very good, he was good looking, but you see, Arthur Chaskalson was one of those people, he made a decision to join the defense, not necessarily with pay, because he was just one of those people that would defend the people that actually would never have been defended. And then next to him was George Bezos. Now, George Bezos had come all the way from Greece. You see, he had seen how the Nazi government had oppressed the Greek people in Greece. So him and his father fled from Greece, and then he studied and he had become an advocate. He joined the defense team. And later, in fact, there was a man called Vernon Berard. Vernon was a master of cross-examination. He could look at a witness and he could break him apart. He could look at a witness and he could get him to a point where he could break him. But when all the accused had been arrested, when they were arrested, there was a man called Joel Jove. Joel was an attorney. So, what the families of all the accused, they went to him and asked him if he could actually indeed represent their people. And it was him that spoke to all of these guys. And now, the Rivonia trial was about to start. But then, let me tell you, first day of the Rivonia trial, on that day, the Pretoria Supreme Court. The Pretoria Supreme Court was segregated, it was divided into two. On this side, it was the side where the whites only would sit, and on this side, it was the side where the blacks only, or the non-whites only would sit. And then, on the side where the whites only would sit, that place was filled with police on that day. The Pretoria Supreme Court had never seen as much police, never ever seen so many police as it had seen on that day. In the foyer, it was packed with the police. Behind the court, it was packed with police. In the building behind the court, there were police, it was packed with police. In the streets, it was packed with police. But even with all of that show of power and force, people had come to support their leaders that were standing trial there. And then something powerful was seen coming from all over there. A powerful convoy. That convoy was led by 3 cars. Those cars were carrying senior police and senior warders. Behind it, it was a van that was carrying police. Those police had stand guns. Behind it, it was a van that was carrying the accused. That van was segregated, it was divided into 2. In front, it was the part where the white accused would sit, and behind that, it was the part where the non-white accused would sit. And then it was more police, and then it was more police, and then it was more police. And then that whole convoy marched through the city, stopping every vehicle, and then it came right through to the Supreme Court. And when it came to the Supreme Court, those big iron gates opened up, and that convoy marched in. And when that convoy came in, those big iron gates were closed. Bah! And there was more police in the Pretoria Supreme Court. The accused had been cuffed from the beginning, from their cells. Later, they were brought up. And now, for the first time, everybody that was going to spend months in this Rivonia trial met for the first time. And the judge was a man called Judge Quartus de Wet. Judge de Wet was an Afrikaner. He was a proud Afrikaner. He was very proud of who he was. But he was also a man unto himself. Nobody could know exactly what he's going to do or what he's going to say. So there was a question then amongst the defense, was whether it was good to have Judge de Wet there or not. But nobody could tell about Judge Quartus de Wet. He was not a man that was known so much for dispensing like legal sentencing or not. No, he was known for dispensing stiff sentences. So in front of us we had Judge Quartus de Wet. But first up, was Dr. Utah, the prosecutor. And now, ladies and gentlemen, do please stand, the court is about to begin. Please stand, the court is about to begin. You may be seated. My Lord, I think it is very important that we understand what we're dealing with here, my Lord. All the accused here represent the ANC. Now the ANC, my Lord, is a political organization, yes. But my Lord, it is an organization that has been driven and operated underground. This organization, my Lord, had embarked on a clearly plotted policy of violence, which was designed to lead sabotage through to the invasion of the country by foreign power. It was planned, my Lord, by these accused to set up trained guerrilla units all over the country, and these units were going to spearhead a policy of violence. And in the midst of that arising chaos, it was planned by these accused to set up a provincial revolutionary government which was going to run the affairs of the country. My Lord, this is the classical intention of dethroning a government of a country by force. The charges here, my Lord, are too serious. It is a pity, my Lord, that so many of the African people have been duped by false promises of free bread, free hospitals, even free holidays, to have embarked on a policy of violence. The state, my Lord, the state calls on you to impose a sentence that is so befitting of such terrorist activities. The state calls on you to impose a death penalty. So, a death penalty was that the police was pushing. But then, see, this trial was not just a trial, it was not just any trial. It was a trial that had attracted so much international involvement in it. These accused were receiving awards from all over the place around the world. In the United Nations, a vote was passed by the United Nations urging the South African government to release the accused. But then, the accused had argued that this was a political case. They saw this as an opportunity to tell the whole world about the situation in South Africa. Nelson Mandela, when he was arrested in August 1962, never allowed himself to be cross-examined by the state because he said that he's actually not subject to the laws of the country. And so, even in this case, it was agreed that Nelson Mandela was not going to be cross-examined, but he was given the responsibility to put the situation of the country and read it from the top. And this is what he said. I am the first accused. I hold a bachelor's degree